All right, guys, I'd really like to get to share what you need to know on the planning for a lesson. Now, I've obviously done quite a bit of trying to manipulate all sorts of things here so that I can show you exactly what I'm looking for. Right, in this lesson plan that you have to plan, like I said, I've been working on a few ways to do this to present it so that you can actually get the maximum benefit from this. The most important thing here is that you will have a comprehensive idea how to set up your lesson. First of all, if we look at it, we need to start with our CAPS document. There we go. I've got term 3, grade 3. Now, this is purely an example for you to be able to get all the concepts that the assessors would be looking for. Like I said, we've got grade 3, term 3. I've selected from the topics that we've got down here. I've selected jumping and I've selected balance. To just have one or the other would have been a little bland. So we make sure that we've got some oomph for our lesson, right? And we don't, yes, remember, there are some things that are kind of bend a little. So we don't stick necessarily to what's only here in the CAPS document. You add your flavor as well. Right, so having seen that we selected jump and balance as our, locomotor, let's see, locomotor and balance. Within that topic of locomotor, I've taken jump, and within balance, I'm going to play around with walking, crawling, for example, and moving backwards and forwards. Now, if we stand and walk, then we're obviously going to be moving forwards or backwards. Okay, so if we then had to go back to where we start setting up our lesson, we're looking at the lesson plan as you've got it on ECI. So we've selected grade 3, term 3. I've chosen from page 52 in the CAPS, I've chosen balance and locomotor. Okay, and under or as a topic, my focus points will be jump and balance. Right. Now we have to establish our objective. Now, first of all, our lesson template clearly indicates that you have the learner would be able to. Now, I don't have to repeat that when I'm saying point-wise probably what my objective is. But the main thing here is by the end of the lesson, what would your learner be able to do? Okay, so it's specific to my topic. My topic, obviously, then creates my objective. You will see your objective will specifically lead to your rubric in a moment as well. Here, make sure that we are not dealing with a summary of the activities. It's not a summary. We merely pointing out what the learner would be able to do without the details of the activities coming. So I don't need an essay here. Like I said, you could use by point, or a simple explanation, jumping using both legs. I could add here jumping using one leg to a double leg land, but that would be excessive. We can include that in our teaching phase. Right, jumping using both legs, using various equipment, moving in various directions and at various heights. Can you see here that I leave it open for interpretation? My lesson might be adapted because of circumstances. So I would adapt for the better so that I can make sure that I will achieve my objective, okay? In different directions, obviously would include forward and backwards, but I leave it open for me moving sideways, for example, because I would like to include a side jump as well, just to keep the learners engaged. My next one, like we said, we've got jump and balance, balance on various body parts using a variety of equipment to manipulate. So in other words, I'm leaving this open to whatever my activities are going to be including. Although my objective is speaking to my topic, I'm making sure that it also leads to my activities to come. Okay? On various body parts, you have to bear in mind, guys, we're talking about grade 3s here. We're not going to stand on one leg and balance a beanbag on our heads. That is just too basic. Even for grade 1s, you need a bit of a challenge. Okay. Then if we move on, we're looking at my method of assessment. And here, of course, we refer to the rubric. Okay. So our rubric, note, is not a checklist. We don't want to simply check whether a learner can crawl through, for example, an obstacle course. Okay, we want to make sure we look at specific body parts. Are they following the cues that indicate what that body part should be doing? In our case, remember we have jump and balance. I am selecting jump. I'd like you to only use one of the skills that you're going to be teaching as your rubric, right? So one of the two I'm assessing. Note here that my full score or rating that I'm providing is 6 or 7 rather, but 6 to 7 is my advanced. So 7 is according to CAPS, okay? So my CAP says 7 is my total mark that I would assess a specific skill, right? A specific session. Now, when I look at the jump, I'm dividing the body parts into legs, arms, and I've included upper body, which is not in your template. So you can use other body parts here as well. You could add feet, for example. You can understand that legs would lead to feet and knees. You can understand that upper body could possibly lead to knees, for example, shoulders as well, okay? My big issue with creating this rubric, one, you can obviously refer to your red cap document. You could also refer to COVA, your textbook, your module textbook. But the easiest way to create this rubric would be to physically stand up and perform your movement. Now, as soon as I have to jump, what are my arms going to do? Where are my arms going to reach to? What are my legs going to be doing? Where does my body lean towards? Okay, so these things are going to guide you into the advanced learner. It's simple because from my advanced learner, these keywords are now indicating what I would want to teach the learner. How do they actually learn how to do the skill? If they are going to perform as an advanced learner, or if I'm going to teach rather, what the advanced learner would be doing, surely that makes sense that I then will be getting them to perform what the advanced learner should be doing. So you'll see the advanced keywords are directly related just now when we get to the main development teaching phase. This is what you will be using to instruct or to explain or to describe what and how you will teach in that phase. So remember this when we get to that phase. Can you see that I'm suggesting here that you start with advanced? When you have your advanced keywords and what you will be looking at how the student is performing or learner is performing, then you work backwards to the intermediate and back further to the beginner. This is what we said in class as well. Because If the advanced learner is performing in a certain way, surely the intermediate will be doing slightly less, and the beginner will do far less in an attempt to execute the skill successfully. Let's have a look. In the advanced learner, the legs for jumping, the feet will be slightly apart, the knees are slightly bent. There's an explosion of both feet. The feet are together in the landing with soft knees. Okay? Now you can see that if I work backwards from the explosion, for example, I didn't look at the others. You can extend your discovery. From the explosion, for example, my intermediate might not explode of both feet, but of one foot. He or she might, or as a beginner, will have no explosion. They'll just simply try and jump without exploding off the ground. Okay? Can you see how it's easier then to move from advanced to beginner? Look at the landing. If my advanced learner is landing with soft knees, for example, my beginner will land with locked knees, and therefore that indicates to me, because I am observing what the knees are doing, I would be able to classify that learner as a beginner. Okay? But obviously you will see that you would have a total score out the number of body parts that you will be checking. Right, so if I look at arms, I've not filled this in here. So it's a little homework for you. The arms, for example, would, in the advanced, I would be able to say that the advanced learner, here with the arms, will have their arms pulled back completely so that they reach behind them. Once they've reached behind them, as the explosion happens, the arms reach to above the head so that you can even use the keywords reach for stars, and then drop slightly forward for balancing on the land. Can you see that now I have to explain the advanced learner is they would be pulling back the arms, swing back, follow through, reach up, drop down, and back. Can you see that I've now included all the keywords that would indicate how I teach the actual movement of arms? Okay. And the same, guys, would be going for the upper body. Right. Then we move on to the introduction, the actualization of the lesson. Now comes the fun part, of course. Let's just move that up. See if I do that. There we go. Right. So if we look at the introduction, our warm-up, note first that this 2-3 minutes that I'm indicating there, probably in reality more of a 5 to 6 minutes, because you don't want to skimp on this. Right, so my warm-up, we want the learners here to get involved and get moving as soon as possible. We need to make sure that the body parts that we need for the skill, in other words, what's our objective? Those body parts are the ones that are going to be involved in this phase. We need to make sure it's fun, it's constructive, and the whole group would preferably be participating in this. There are later you would be able to adjust and say, right, one line would be doing one activity, etc. That's if you're very confident with your class. For now, we'll have the whole group do the warm-up. Remember, it's the body parts that you're going to be using. Here, make very sure you're referring to your topic, you're referring to your objective, right? They're speaking to each other. You will see here, the most important thing is that you are explaining the activity and that you are explaining the setup of the learners. This section therefore explains what is going to happen. I've used an illustration here as well, right? So that I can see what they're physically going to be doing. Note that I've put a reference as well. You can put the references at the end of your lesson as well. Okay. Here I have indicated my setup. Can you see that I was speaking about the learner's setup and I was talking about the activity? You must make sure that your descriptions are very clear. Your field setup is very important. The extra illustrations that I've put here are not crucial. They simply there, in my case, I'd like to play around with some visuals, okay? It makes your life easier. I always say it's your crypt notes. When you get to your lesson, you would be able to immediately be able to identify, that's what I was going to be doing. That's what the body positions are. That's what my field layout is all about, okay? But your descriptions have to be very clear. Right. In this case, for example, I'm playing Ring of Rosies, but look at this and you can read this in your own time. I am adding my own flavor. Otherwise, I'm basically just, if you think about it, plagiarizing because I'm just using the same old. Look, I'm also showing that you need to add lyrics, by the way, even if you write your own song. How about that? If you have a look here, I've modified it to suit me. So when they fall down, they can be Superman. Or when they fall down, they can lie on the ground and do the bicycle movement, okay? So I'm adapting the movement to suit my topic. Right. Then we move on to our main development. Now, in our main development, we want to make sure we start by teaching the skill. You will see here, and after doing this whole thing, I realized, okay, well, I didn't teach the actual balance. So you need to notice here, please, that we would add another section under the teaching explaining how I teach the balance as well. I've included the run here, the jump. Oh, my bad. I've included the jump here. Right. Then I explain, and look at this. Here, all of it shows to me what I have been talking about in my rubric. Okay, so up in the rubric, I was referring to where the knees are, where the arms are swinging back to. Here I am breaking it down, physically doing the movement with the learners. And as I'm breaking it down, I'm also adding keywords. Right, those keywords lead to what the learner is going to be performing, how the learner is going to perform that skill. Right, these are, in other words, the body parts, keywords that I'm going to look for to be able to identify which level the learner is at. Now that I've taught the jump, using all those keywords, breaking it down, I will then also teach the balance. For example, I would be showing them how they would walk on a skipping rope or on a balancing beam, where their arms should be. When they are balancing, that their arms are shoulder height, elbows slightly bent, palms down. Right, so I have to give the specific keywords in doing the balance as well. As you can see, I've also, again, indicated my layout, my field layout. Where am I placing all the learners? Are they placed in such a way that they are visible to me, and can I be seen by all of them? Right. I've also indicated which equipment I will be using, my resources, and there that would obviously totally depend on how you're setting up your learners and what the skill is that you're going to be teaching. Here you can see that I have now added again, I've added my own illustration here of how the movement will be executed. Again, a reference included as well. Like I said before, this is not necessary. It just helps make your life easier. And yes, it adds a bit of flavor to your display. of your lesson plan for assignment purposes. But once you're in the real world, it also helps you to be able at a glance, what am I going to be looking for when the learner is executing this movement? Okay, as you can see, I'm pointing out knees, feet together, arms swinging back, pushing off, the explosion, etc., etc. Okay, so make sure your main development starts with teaching a skill. We don't go straight into, especially for our purposes for TP, we don't go straight into our activities. I need to see how you teach a skill. Okay. Right, then we get to activity 1. Station 1, you'll see your lesson template indicates that you've got 3 stations or 3 activities. You'll see here I make specific reference to doing this progressively. Make sure that you don't start, for example, with zigzag movements or using too much equipment because the learner still can't do the skill, for example. You've seen with a forward roll, we didn't have our activities immediately start by doing little activities, including the forward roll. We built up, okay? Like I said there, you start the activities from basic to more complex. Here again, guys, I'm showing clearly what my setup is all about. I've indicated the resources or the equipment that I'll be using. I explain clearly what my learners will be doing. Where's learner number 1 that will be moving across to tag the next learner, who then, once tagged, will be moving across the same obstacles to the opposite line. So my description of how the learners will move and execute the activity plus the actual field layout is very clear. Okay. Then I've again added just a little diagram there of what the movement would be like that I want them to do, for example, over the mini hurdles over here. Placing the teacher is not quite relevant as long as you know that the teacher always has to be in a position of observing all learners. The teacher cannot be in a position where he or she does not see all the learners. This is where you also decide how much discipline do you have with your class. If it's a class of 43, can you afford them being at the different stations? Or does it not make more sense to have the whole group at station 1, divide them in many lines or groups, whether it be circles that you're working in, and then move the whole group to station 2? Okay, so it doesn't make sense to split them in the 3 stations if you have no or little control. Okay, please make sure then in your time to read through the explanations of each of these stations, and bear in mind, guys, these are examples. You extend, you explain, as long as you find that you're putting across your explanation very clear as to the activity and the field setup. Okay. And obviously you don't have to be elaborate in your designs, in your illustrations, as long as they're clear. You can draw them, scan them, put them in, but it's very crucial for you to understand. And this field setup is going to guide you better into what your learners should be doing. I've given you another example here then of activity 2, and it doesn't want to go up there. In activity 2, again, guys, what I've done very clearly here is explain what the learners will be doing in this activity, and obviously how my setup is going to be working. Once I see my setup, my field layout, I would be able to remember, because it jogs my memory, these are my crypt notes, remember, that I've got the skipping ropes coming out from a hoop that I've put in the middle. The hoop contains bean bags. I've put a couple of bean bags there. Obviously the same number as learners that I've got. I've put cones around, but I've got from the hoop with tennis balls or bean bags, I've got the skipping rope leading out towards the learners on the outside. This learner, for example, then, or all of them at the same time, because we want maximum participation, maximum of the time. Remember that. Now I've got my learner or learners to put the beanbag on their head, basic, okay? They're going to walk along the skipping rope like I've taught them with a beanbag on their head, arms to the side. In the hoop, they put the beanbag down, they pick up the tennis ball for argument's sake, all right? These are just examples off the top of my head. Put the tennis ball on the back of the non-dominant hand, for example. They walk back along the skipping rope, but we challenge them now. Now we want them to lift their knees high while they're walking so that we include extra balance. Can you see that this again is now talking directly to my objective? Activity 1, focused on the jump. Activity 2 is more focused than on the balance. But you'll see, yes, being me, of course, I added here, when they back at the cone, let's add a double leg jump over the cone. They face the inside of the circle again, and then they have to V-sit in a balance. So I could actually put an illustration in here as well of how do you sit in a V. Okay, that balance they hold, and then we repeat the activity. Okay, you'll see I also added here using the whistle to start. Sometimes a clap, hand clap, or just the body movement or the instruction from the teacher would guide them into the next movement. Okay. Guys, I think from this, you are getting a better idea of exactly how you would approach your planning of your lesson. I did not do your station 3, your activity 3. Again, you will make sure that you explain clearly, that you are explaining the activity and you are explaining the field setup. Your illustrations are included, and of course, you're including resources. Whether you do or don't, you indicate then none, for example. Okay. Then we look at the conclusion in the normal TP space. But for us, we're consolidating by calming the learners down. We don't want learners to go back to maths and still be on a high. Okay, it's not fair probably to yourself because you're going to be the teacher for maths. You could use a teacher follow game, but then note that a game is not going to be something where they get super excited. You could use music here. You could use stretching, but stretching must not be basic. Don't be boring and bland. Be exciting. The most important thing here would be that there's always a flow of movement. If you select movements that are only including stretching, then obviously, but make sure that there's movement all the time, okay? I want to make sure that the learners are stretching the muscles that were used for the skill that they were taught, right? So I've been jumping. The legs are going to be crucial. They've been swinging their arms in the jump. The arms are going to be crucial, for example, and then you can add other body parts. Okay, for this example, again, I've indicated here what resources I would be using. Not always in this cool down would you use that. You could take them in this space, you can take them back to how they started in those positions. If you had to look back at our warm-up and our teaching phase, as I've pointed out here, in the teaching phase, I had them more or less in this position as well. Right, my field layout. In this one, for example, I have placed learners in lines next to each other, and they will be facing the teacher that would be in the front. There's a skipping rope between each of the learners. So that creates a line. They would both, obviously, or all of them, pick up the line. The ones at the end only are using one arm. You can instruct them to use both arms. These two, as would the rest of the line, would be holding the skipping rope up, right? So they're holding that. What happens now is the teacher guides, and you don't have to guide here with the whistle. In a cool down and warm up, sometimes it is probably better to rather just use instruction. Okay, so what happens is the teacher will be lifting the arms up, indicating that she wants all the learners to hold the skipping rope up above them. So between me and my partner, the rope now is nice and tight between us. Now the teacher would simply guide them, right, from here, we're going to drop forward, only the arms and only the arms back. Then the whole upper body down and back. Can you see that I'm stretching the arms? I'm stretching the back as I bend over. We can hold the skipping rope to the sides and pull each other side to side. Now I'm stretching the waist as well. Once I have my legs straight and I get them to drop the rope in front of them, then I'm stretching the back of the legs, the hamstrings. Okay, so can you see that without announcement, I've actually got them stretching? Then my second movement is that I've got here are bean bags at the end of the line. Now they drop the skipping ropes, they turn to face the side, they pick up a bean bag. That bean bag is now passed down the line, over the head, under between the legs, over, under. Turn around, do the same back. Can you see? By stretching over, passing the bean bag, arms and upper body stretching. Passing it down under, instruct to keep the legs straight. They are stretching the legs, both quads and hamstrings. Okay. You'll see here that I've added, and yes, of course it's moved, so why, I have no idea. I've indicated some stretches, but I would explain them as well. Because remember, it's not necessary to put these in. I need you to be able to describe them as well. Okay, and again, a reference. Why the whole lesson plan moved, I have no idea. Okay. Please note the student reflection is only done after presenting the lesson, because then with the feedback that you get, that is how you actually used, you've put in place, you've performed, you've engaged with the learners. That is where you can then fill in the reflection by noticing, being cognizant of what happened, what should have happened, what worked, what didn't work. Okay, please make sure as well that there are references. You surely didn't just, maybe you did have the idea, but mostly we get these ideas from all sorts of places. So please indicate your referencing as well. Right, guys, have fun and do the utmost best of understanding your lesson plan, understanding your skill before you're actually going to be able to present this lesson. Right, have fun.